Who's the busiest man in sports? How about a guy who began his week racing at Talladega and then stopped off in Dallas, Texas at the National Cable Convention? Before arriving back here in Indianapolis for our qualification coverage, our Dr. Jerry Punch caught up with the king, Richard Petty.
Thank you very much, Bob. We're at the National Cable Television Association Convention here in Dallas, Texas, where you can see everything you ever wanted to see in cable. The newest electronic innovations, the newest music videos, and of course, entertainment and sports, which is us, ESPN. And look who's come to visit. The king of stock car racing comes calling to the king of cable. ESPN, the largest of the USA's cable networks, 59.6 million homes. And Richard, it's good to have you here in Dallas with us.
Well, it's good to be here. In fact, it's good to be anywhere, I guess.
Now, coming off that great run at Talladega, you guys had a tremendous effort down there. I know you finished 15th, but you ran close to the top 10 all day.
Well, we had a good day. You know, all week long we'd run pretty good, qualified pretty good. Put an engine in, didn't run that good, but then we took it out and put the qualifying engine back in and felt like we had a good chance to really finish a little bit better than we did. But our pit stops really wasn't that good. Wasn't timed right. We was always running at the back end of the pack instead of in the middle of the pack. But we had a good day, and it's a lot better than the last 3 or 4 weeks we've been running, so we'll take it and get ready for next week.
Now, you were in Talladega a few days ago. You're in Dallas today. Do you have to wake up every morning as busy as you are with this fan appreciation tour and have someone tell you where you are?
Well, almost. You know, sort of put it on the wall so that when you get up, you're not confused about where you're at. But it's just, you know, I guess it's a situation. I'm going to be somewhere. My deal is just finding out where I'm at and where I got to be. And taking 2 or 3 people really to keep up with the schedule as far as trying to make it arranged where we're not supposed to be at the same places or 2 different places at the same time. So they're doing a good job of it. It's just a little bit busier than what I really anticipated.
Richard, as much fun as you're having, as much fun as the fans are having with this appreciation tour, have you thought about maybe in September or October saying, well, I think I'll do it all again next year?
Well, you know, no, I hadn't thought too much about it. I tell you, I think I'll be pretty well through with it by then. But, you know, from a standpoint that it's really been busy for me. I hope it's been good for the fans and I hope it's been good for racing.
What about 1993? What will happen at Petty Enterprises? Have you thought that far ahead yet?
Well, we thought that far ahead. We've just not done a whole lot about it. We've ordered a couple of new cars for next year. You know, we're working in that vein. We pretty well know where we're going to be with the sponsors and stuff like this. But from a driver's standpoint, no, we've not really got down to talking to anybody yet. We're trying to sort of figure out what we can do with our team and then put the driver in as a team member. But right now we're just trying to get everything settled down on the ground like it's supposed to be done.
You know, at Talladega there was a rumor, and I know you and Dale Earnhardt have had some business dealings, but there was a rumor that he might even come down and drive for you there in the future. Is that any thoughts about that?
Really, we hadn't talked about it, okay? I mean, you know, I'd like to have Dale to drive the car, but no, we was talking about some different business ventures that we're in. But, you know, like I say, I can't talk to any driver. It doesn't make any difference who it is, because then the rumor gets started that I'm trying to hire somebody. So if I'm going to do it, I'm going to have you to talk to somebody for me, because I can't afford to do that to get some other people in trouble.
Richard, you have taken the sport to a different level. All your years involved with NASCAR racing, and you have been so important to taking the sport from being an amateur sport to being a professional sport. But in your eyes, what do you see as the biggest change that has taken place in NASCAR racing, say, in the past 4, 5, 6 years?
Well, you know, it's really hard to say. There's no particular one thing, but really what has really escalated us from where we was 10 years ago or something is the TV time that we have now. Every race is on TV in some way, shape, or form. And it used to, you know, they might show 15 minutes of a race, or then they tried to consolidate them and show them a week or 2 later and stuff like that. But when they got where they could show them, you know, flag to flag live, it really, from the sponsor standpoint, from the crew standpoint, from the spectator standpoint, it really upgraded our part of the whole racing deal, and it makes everybody more conscious of what's going on.
We've been visiting with the king, Richard Petty, here at the National Cable Television Convention. And yes, Richard Petty looking for win number 201. And the king, he won't tell us when it's going to happen, but I got to believe, as all of you do at home, that it'll happen very soon before he calls it quits in 1992. Richard, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Bob?
Thanks very much, Jerry. Richard will be competing next Saturday night under the lights in the Winston, his first start in NASCAR's All-Star event since 1989. Now, new rules allow former winners and Winston Cup champions automatic entrance into the starting field.
ground transportation arranged through General Rent-A-Car, where you can now earn a $50 U.S. savings bond with just 4 rentals of a quality Chrysler compact or larger car. Travel arranged through Continental, taking off this summer to Mexico. No better beaches, no better time. Continental to Cozumel. One airline can make a difference.
After 5 weeks of midget racing on the tight dirt track at the Ventura Fairgrounds in California, Saturday Night Thunder crowned its ESPN champion, and it was Joe Gertie. Joe won the championship despite having no wins and falling out of Saturday's race in this 4-car incident. Paige Jones dominated most of the event until he hit a rut with only 1 lap to go, allowing Keith Crisco to gain his first career midget victory. Well, tonight it's the USAC Sprint Cars on the 5/8 mile oval at Indianapolis Raceway Park. Here's Larry Rice with a look at what we can expect.
Thanks, Bob. After 3 sprint car races already this season, Eric Gordon finds himself in unfamiliar territory as the points leader. Eric, you finished second 3 seasons in a row. Do you think you can win the championship this year?
Well, we've got a lot better start than we've ever had before. I'm with the team that I ran with all year last year, and we received sponsorship from Olds Unlimited and from Valvoline, so I think we'll have all our ducks in a row to finally do it this year.
You had a terrible crash at the CRA race last week. Tell us how you feel and what happened.
Well, I'm still pretty sore. It was a pretty good crash. We completely destroyed our dirt sprinter. I was running with the CRA at Eldora. Had just passed Leland McSpadden for second and was going for first. And the right rear brushed the wall. It pulled the front end over to the fence, and it did a series of endovers going down the backstretch.
Well, good luck, and we're glad you're all right. Several of the guys who joined Eric last week at Eldora with the non-wing sprint cars are going to be here tonight at Indianapolis Raceway Park. But let's take a look at what happened last week. Saturday night at Eldora, a serious accident involved Brad Nofsinger and Dennis Rodriguez Jr. While Nofsinger was uninjured, Rodriguez suffered a bruised lung and breaks to his shoulder and collarbone. He is listed in critical condition in Dayton, Ohio. Rusty McClure took the checkered flag and also earned a victory the next night in Findlay, Ohio at the Millstream Speedway. The CRA Tour continued on Tuesday night at Grandview Speedway with Mike Kirby taking the win. There will be more action all over the Midwest this week, and it starts right here tonight at Indianapolis Raceway Park. Bob?
All right, Larry, we'll see you at 9:30 this evening. Now, while most of the attention is focused on the big speedway on the west side of Indianapolis or Indianapolis Raceway Park, the world of outlaw sprint cars were on the Indy Mile last night. Marty Reed was at the Indiana State Fairgrounds for the greatest show on dirt. Marty?
Thanks, Bob. You know, years ago, driving a sprint car on dirt truly was one of the best ways of making it to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. But no longer today. These sprint cars truly are outlaws at the Brickyard. Of the big 3, Doug Wolfgang, Steve Kinser, and Sammy Swindell, only Swindell has driven at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and that was back in 1987 when he was bumped on Bubble Day.
You know, it wasn't that difficult for me, I don't think. You know, I never was in a real good race car, but you know, I think I could go as fast as anybody if I had you know, equal equipment.
For Kinser, the king of the outlaws, 311 career wins have not paved the way for a single Indy 500 start.
If I wanted to run a speedway bad enough, I should gave up what I was doing and went out and chased that dream, and that's something I elected not to do at the time. So you can't really blame anybody but myself. It's hard to say, you know, when I always thought I wanted to run a speedway, but then when I, had the opportunity to run sprint cars, everything went quite well. So I stayed right where I was at. I would still like to do it, but at this point in time, it's not working out that way, and I have no complaints of what I'm doing here.
And what Kinser's doing is continuing his domination of the dirt. During Friday's heat race action, Steve was chasing Kenny Jacobs when this 3-car crash occurred. Greg Hodnott, Andy Hillenberg, and Aaron Berryhill, all the victims. Luckily, they were all okay. Kinser went on to take the checkered flag, and including his win at Granite City earlier this week, Steve is now up to 312 career victories.
Thanks, Marty. The Winged Warriors are back in action tomorrow night in Hobstadt, Indiana. Here's what the men of the 459th Military Airlift Wing at Andrews Air Force Base and other race fans will be watching on TV this weekend. The USAC Sprint Cars are the headliners on Saturday Night Thunder tonight at 9:30 Eastern from Indianapolis Raceway Park. The second day of time trials for the Indy 500 will be on ESPN tomorrow at 2 o'clock Eastern and again at 6 p.m. ABC will also have an hour of coverage from the Brickyard at 4 Eastern. Derek Daly and I will wrap up qualifying with a half-hour show at 12:30 a.m. Eastern Sunday morning and again Monday morning. Next Saturday, we'll cover the third day of qualifications again at 2 and 6, and Speedweek will be on at its regular time, 7:30 Eastern next Saturday. Speeds at the Brickyard are much higher this year than last. In fact, there hasn't been as much of an increase from one year to the next since 1972, when there was a 17-mile-an-hour jump. Let's go back to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, where Derek Daly has some thoughts.
Thanks, Bob. Well, the magical word here this month has been speed. Earlier this week, Jim Crawford did a speed above 253 miles per hour. Well, he didn't really, but with the increase in speeds, it may not be too long before we do talk about speeds like that. I looked up the Webster's Dictionary, and the definition of a speed is to move rapidly, especially more rapidly than is safe or allowed by law. Well, the speeds here this month, they're definitely allowed by law. But the age-old question now arises again, is it safe, or are we slipping a little bit too deeply into the danger zone?
And obviously, the cars, the chassis are very, very good to be able to run those speeds, but things do go wrong with race cars. You know, things do break, and we do get together with each other. And when something like that happens, I mean, the speeds that we're carrying, I mean, we're running 240 miles an hour on the straights. You know, the cars are very, very good and very strong, but for those kind of speeds, I mean, it really is kind of crazy.
I think, Derek, is a major concern, mainly with the speed, the cornering speed, I think, is the worst. And we are getting nearly 4 sideways G. And you know that when you lose control, you have so much speed sideways towards the wall. I think that's the major problem.
Now, we all know that Nelson Piquet had a terrible crash here last Thursday. Well, if the speeds continue to climb here, does this now mean that in future, if a driver makes a direct hit like Piquet did, that his life changes forever because of orthopedic injuries? I really don't think it should be that way. And actually, it's beginning to make some of the drivers a little bit nervous.
I think that makes anybody with any common sense nervous. I mean, we've gotten to the point now that you're turning into the corners at 240 miles an hour, and the cars stick. But I spoke to Bobby Rahal this morning. He puts it very well. It's kind of like playing Russian roulette. Every time you go out, you spin it, and you hope the bullet is not in the wrong place.
Everybody comes here during the month to cheer on these tremendous speeds. But when something goes wrong, we get reminded that this sport can be savage.
All right, Derek, and that will do it for another edition of Speed Week. We'll see you next week at 7:30 Eastern Time. We leave you this week with some sights and sounds of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So long, everyone.
Speed Week has been brought to you by GMC Trucks.